Hello there, and welcome back to International Fathers. I'm your host and your creator, Nelson L. Moody Sr. We'll be back with International Fathers with another guest of mine,
Tyrelle, Tyler.
and we're going to talk to him about his fatherhood and his parental involvement with his child, and also going to talk about his life with his father. And with that in mind, what was it like with you growing up with your dad in your life?
Mm, of course, there's some hardships here and there, but despite the hardships, my father was there, taught me a lot. But I think the most inspirational thing he taught me was never to blame anybody for things that you don't do. You know, you're responsible for yourself. And even though he wasn't in a household, he was a big contribution to a lot. Even
Mm-hmm.
though he didn't have a lot of money, the lessons he taught me and the values he instilled in me was the most important thing, which was more important than money itself. Most of all, his presence was more important.
Mm. Well, we just opened up with one simple question, and my guest, Mr. Tyrelle here, just gave a ball of confusion of answers. I'm gonna go back to one in particular that I always tell people that it's never money or material things
Mm-mm.
in reference to a child. It's always a quality time, because my belief is that you can never buy love from a child. You can
No.
never buy that bond from that child. That child will remember you as his or her father,
Mm-hmm.
walking through the park, riding a bike, playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
That child will remember that a whole lot more than that $100 that you just gave them, and it's
Mm-hmm.
gone the next week.
That's true. I
You,
can't count or remember how much money he gave me, but I can remember every single time he loved me, hugged me, kissed me, came to pick me up, took me out, and was just there.
mm-hmm.
Even the times we just sat on the steps and talked and laughed and joked. I cannot count. I cannot add up all that money, but I can remember every single moment.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember all the gifts, but I can remember all the love
We're gonna go back to your childhood then.
he
We're gonna take it
gave.
back to the childhood. Um, let's say you're 6, 7 years old,
Okay.
okay, and and you and your dad bonding, connecting, talking. Um, let's talk about that time frame of your life with you and your father.
Well, around 7. I mean, just in general as a child, my childhood.
Let's deal with that 7 to 9 year old frame.
7 to 9 year old frame. It was actually a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember my elementary school baseball team. Um, he came there. I thought he wasn't going to make it, but he came there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those moments where you hear about the child saying, "Oh, she was the loudest one. My dad was the loudest one." He made it known I was his child. Like, that's my son. Go ahead, boy. My mother over there shaking her head with a little smirk on her face, like he's too much. But he made
Mm-hmm.
sure everybody knew that I was his child, and he was very, very proud of me. Even though I struck out and didn't catch a few balls, that man was like this. If you heard it, that man clapped. It's gonna be alright.
Mm-hmm.
You know, around that time, trying to be more specific and not veer off, but around that time frame from 7 to 9, my dad has been very supportive to some of it all. Very supportive,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, even though he wasn't in a household, um, there's nothing bad you can say about that, or say, oh, the basic African American fathers aren't in the household, kids growing up misguided.
Okay.
No, even though around the time he wasn't in the household, no one can
Okay.
ever say that, or would I allow anyone to assume
Wow.
that.
Baseball. I can relate to your father and you. My oldest son was also on a baseball team,
Hmm.
and he wrestled. And when he would see me come to the games, about probably 93% of his games I've made, taking time off when I
Hmm.
had to just to support him,
Hmm.
Being off and definitely being there. But this one particular time, he was wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like out in Anne Arundel County somewhere. For you people in Baltimore, y'all know what I'm talking about. For the rest of the world in YouTube land, you may not know. But it was a distance from where we lived at. I had got there, and my son may have been on his probably second or third match,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just about to go under.
Mm-hmm.
When I walked in the gym, and his friends from the bleachers looked at me. Some knew who I was, and some didn't. It's like the whole gymnasium looked right at me. And when my son saw that,
Mm-hmm.
bang!
Yeah.
He pinned that boy.
He wasn't gonna let that happen.
No.
Man, my dad here.
My dad is here.
Exactly.
I'm
it's
ready
not gonna
to
happen. Mm-mm.
bam,
Yeah.
and he nailed him,
Mm-hmm.
and got first place in his weight class.
That's good.
You know,
That
we're gonna go back and more, and also what I know from experience, and also other fathers, you don't have to be in the same household
Mm-hmm.
as your child. And you people out there in YouTube land, you know I like to teach as well as interview folks too. So I'm getting ready to teach something else that, in case you didn't know it, or if you have any shadow of a doubt of it, my guess is part of the product of it, of his father not living in the same household with him, but involved with him. And there's a big difference in being involved, living on the outside, not being involved on the inside. However, he had the upper hand, and which is a gigantic, humongous misconception that even though a father may not live in the house with his or her children, his children, son or daughter, excuse me, that he can still be involved and have a huge impact on his children's life.
Mm-hmm.
My guess, Mr. Tyler is a perfect example of that, and there are millions of fathers around the world on every continent that fit the same shoes that he fit. Dad not living there, but his dad. And it's not about money and bikes and video games. It's about that bonding. I guess you mentioned that talk that you and your father had just sitting on the steps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, that's also bonding.
Mm-hmm.
It's also relationship. It also builds up something between a father and a son, being males. And you guys out there in YouTube land know what I'm talking about when it comes to father and your son. That's my boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like he said earlier about the baseball game, he struck out and didn't catch nothing, but
Yeah.
just dad is, that's
Yeah.
my son.
He's clapping louder than everybody else.
It's something about that bond between dad and son
Mm-hmm.
that is just like, you know, I want to be like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know that I've said this from time to time. I've talked about it in a couple of my books that if you are a senior, if you name your son Junior, make sure that senior is doing something that Junior is proud of. To say that I'm Junior, I'm named after my father. Sorry about that, but y'all know how I get on here. You know how I get. Uh, Teenage years. Um, let's talk about that.
Teenage years, I can say due to me being a teenager, I was
Mhm.
more active, so I didn't see him that much.
Okay.
And but I did stop by when I decided to, you're a
Mhm.
teenager, you're
Oh
having
yeah.
fun,
Oh
you
yeah.
get a little bit more leniency,
Mhm.
you're out,
Mhm.
you're able to get out more. But he would still have conversations with me every
Okay.
time I stopped by. and most of all, he taught me about women. The older I got.
Okay. Okay.
Teenage years with my dad was very, very pleasant, and he taught me a lot of lessons. But one of the lessons he taught me was about school.
Okay.
He told me that I'm going to learn a lot, but it's up to me to decipher what's real and what's not. Because as we all know, history is full of lies.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
history has been misconstrued.
Okay.
So he said school is going to be the one of the biggest tests to teach you how to think for yourself,
Okay.
how to learn,
Okay.
how to pay attention, and most of all, how to be you. Because there's a lot of peer pressure in school.
A lot of peer pressure in school.
And when he told me that, I remember the moment in class with my speech, and I can honestly say I went for a whole week without speaking in class. Teacher would ask me a question. I said I don't really feel too well. I don't feel like speaking. Just get it out real quick. So my speech wouldn't become an issue, and I wouldn't be the centerpiece of class, and of course be laughed at.
Okay.
So he taught me about that, and that helped me speak out more.
Okay.
And throughout the rest of my teenage years, we went out a few times. Hung out, me, my brothers, and my dad. I had two older brothers, one younger brother. So we all went out, had some fun, bonded. Found out that my dad loves bowling, so we went out bowling.
Okay.
It wasn't really that good.
Your father wasn't that good, or y'all
wasn't that good? None of us was.
Okay, we're gonna leave it like that. But y'all just had fun.
It was still enough for the
Gotcha.
bowling thing. We had fun.
Gotcha.
Excuse me, sorry about that. We had fun, laughing at each other and everything.
Right. Okay. With that teenage years, you know, I also say to myself and to others that when you beat your chest, I'm the best dad, or I'm the best mom. You know, I tell people, I say, you can say that all you want to. To me, your children dictate what type of parent you was. Meaning, I'm ready to teach again, y'all. Some will understand this and some will miss it. But if you miss it, you're being taught something now. When your children grow up and they hit them teenage years, and y'all still bonding, and y'all still openly holding conversation and much dialogue, that bond is still there. When they hit them 18, 19-year-old time frames, to me, based upon what I've seen, what I've experienced, is that if your child or children still makes that connection with you as they grow older, you've done your job. If your children stay away from you as they get older, to me, you may want to question yourself about what kind of parent you was. Because if your children don't want to be around you, you did something. You said something that didn't rub well with them. And even though they're children, they have feelings.
That's true.
You know, now you went through that phase of your teenage years, then your young adult years. And at the age of 24, I believe, something devastated in your life happened. It knocked you down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
My father had some excuse me. My father had some issues, some medical issues. He was sick, he had cancer. And he went through the whole chemotherapy and everything. He went to the hospital with him and everything. And he was getting better than what we was told, which he was. But as we all know, those who have family members with cancer, it could turn either way. And he came home, his hair started growing back, got a little curly hair. We made jokes about that and everything. And my oldest brother stopped by like 1 o'clock in the morning, and he told us that he passed away. That was hard because he's a strong guy. Like no matter what he went through in life, like you're not gonna keep him from his children. You're not gonna hold him down. He stayed with a job. He stayed up in good spirits. Church took us to church, and I remember at I think it was Camden Yards. They had a church ceremony there when we were younger, and he just came and got us. Like out the blue, we put our clothes on and everything, and we thought we were going to a baseball game, but it was church. And I can honestly say, when you younger, you like, I don't want to go to church, but I enjoyed it. That's the first time I ever enjoyed it. So when we found that out 1 o'clock in the morning, that devastated me because he was getting better. Like that's my backbone. Like that's my man's. I could talk to him about anything, and he wouldn't judge me. That's a person that would actually listen to me, and not even have a rebuttal. He would just listen. Tell me, don't even worry about it. That's what he always reply. And I couldn't be there for him when he was going through that at his last breath, and I wish I was there. So that's a heavy weight on me too. But yeah, that took me down a few notches. It took me about 2 years to get past it. It brought up a lot of anger, and unfortunately, from that same struggle of me since I was young, asking him to stop smoking, with all the stress and anger and the emotional changes, I picked up the bad habit of smoking as well. Because at that time, that was the only thing that could actually calm me down with everything I was going through. But with all the suffering through the cancer and the therapy and hearing him speak about things, I cried my tears, but one thing that helped me get through it was that I realized that his pain was over. My dad was suffering a lot, and my uncle Tyrone found him passed away in his sleep, arms on his chest with us like smiling on his face. So it was like his pain was over, and when my uncle Tyrone explained that to us, a lot of the tension in the room came down. And he always lay on the bed, legs crossed, relaxed, watching his TV like this. That's my dad. Come and speak to him. How you doing? Here, speak, and here, relax, and everything. And it was hard, but when we found out exactly how he passed away in his sleep, relaxed and comfortable, it helped us out a whole lot.
Wow. You still, because this is about 5 years ago.
I'm 31 now. I'll be 32 the 25th of this month, August 25th, and he passed away when I was 24.
Okay. You still, no doubt, feel, think about him, because you mentioned backbone. You and your dad were more than father and son. That sounded like that was your best friend. And your best friend vanishes. And there's no more communication. So the psyche and the emotion and mental of you played for a long time. How long was it before you was able to talk about it?
I still haven't really talked about it.
Okay. Fast forward it, you had a beautiful, beautiful daughter, who I know personally love you. I've met her. She's silly like any other little girl would be. Let's talk about you two.
Okay, I just want to start by saying it's before he passed, a month before he passed, I was dating my daughter's mother, and it's crazy because he spoke it in the air. He asked me, when am I going to give him his granddaughter before he leaves? And I met my daughter's mother. I loved her from day one. We had a 4-year run, everything, and but to get to the point, she was pregnant, and it was a girl.
It was a girl.
Yeah, and it would be some times where Leah would be there asleep, and she would start smiling, and my family and her family have the same beliefs, and it said that when a child smiles in their sleep, the angels are coming.
Yeah.
And she was just smiling, and I felt like something just overly comfortable, and I just smiled, and I know that wasn't my dad.
Wow.
And the relationship with us is very strong with me and my daughter, and I give her everything my dad gave me, and I look at some things that wasn't, and I give her those things even more. So the relationship with my daughter is very, very good, even to where if I make a mistake, I'll apologize to her, because that's what my dad did to me. Even if he would say something like just that and third, Granny, rest her soul, would say, Lump, that's not his fault. I told him to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, Mom, let me know what's going on. So.
And you know what? That's so important. Correcting, disciplining children. You still have to come back and say that you love them. Not correct mine, I still come back and say I love them. I'll hug them. 98% of the time I'll do that. The other 2% I may forget. But my children know that even in my correcting and disciplining them, that I love them. You know, and as parents, as dads, we must always continue that, because my belief is that if we correct, chastise, and discipline, without coming by with a hug and saying I still love you, you don't know what the child may be thinking.
That's true.
You know, that child could be thinking that I'm always getting in trouble, I'm always doing this, I'm always getting punished, a little spanking, stand up in a corner, some old school stuff that we used to do with the holding the books.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I remember that.
or even write 100 times.
I will not.
I will not. I will not. You remember that, right? You know,
front and back,
front and back, right? And don't miss no lines.
And don't write it big.
Don't write. Y'all know what we're talking about out there, YouTube land. I will not. Y'all know what I'm talking about like that. And in most pieces of paper, you can get I will not 27 times on each side. Ask me how I know. I still had showing in school. Y'all, come on, stop that, YouTube. Y'all know me by now. Facebook friends, y'all know too.
Back. No games.
But that still has to come. That love. You know, children are so resilient that they'll forget about that. They still hug you, still kiss you. You know, and that goes back to what I said earlier about I believe that your children dictate what type of parent you was based on what you're doing with them, to them, and for them. You could beat your chest all day long. They have a different story. You know, you also said with me, and I've seen it, you have a lovely goddaughter too.
That's to mine. That's my heart.
Who if you didn't tell nobody, they wouldn't think or believe that.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Hold up, you got two?
Yeah. I thought you had one, but I meant the display of affection and love that you show both of those girls, which is not nothing abnormal. Y'all know who I am. I'm gonna come back to what I'm talking about. Y'all know it's not nothing abnormal. It's not nothing strange that fathers love their daughters. There's nothing strange or new about that. It's here till the end of time. For those of you who didn't know, now you know. For those of you that do know, bam, y'all know we here. And my guests here there too. Yeah. But if you wouldn't tell nobody, based upon what I've seen, you couldn't tell it. Because you love her like your daughter. And there's no, it's no, you're not my child. No.
I think that's the most, I know it's not a word, ignorantist. That's how strong I feel about that. You got to put emphasis on that word to say, or to treat a child, because they didn't, and they have not done anything to you for you to treat a child so wrong, you know?
No.
Like, you just, I feel as though you feel that way, you should take an emotional stand back, you know, step back from that child, and acknowledge yourself and what you're doing before you decide to approach a child like that. Most of all, a child is not yours. You know how that goes with relationships. So I think we all, as adults, when we're dealing with that emotional issue, and that's the only thing that's emotional, we should take that emotional step back and acknowledge ourselves and what's really going on before we decide to treat a child like that. Because it's unfair and they don't deserve it.
Not one bit. I'm totally agree with you, 1,000%. My guest here, Tyler, have interviewed, talked, conversated strongly. His father relationship with him, vice versa, versus his daughters with an S on it. You know, because y'all know me, I don't believe in steps and this and that. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. It's yours, it's yours, yours. I had a great time.
Me too. Hope I answered the question. I know I kind of have a lot of information at one time, but I did enjoy myself.
But I was able to
spews out, you know.
I was able to come back and just get stuff that I needed so that people out there can hear, because it's some father out there right now that you just touched.
I hope so.
It's some father that you just touched.
Because I know being a dad is very, very scary. I remember when I held my child. I actually have a picture. You probably seen it on Facebook. When I had my daughter like this, and I was smiling and stuff. It was this the second day after she was born in the hospital, and they said hold it, and I held it, and I started smiling, and she smiled. So we also shared our first smile together. If you haven't seen it, I'll post it again. And I have her like this, actually like this, holding her and everything. I was like this, smiling, and she is right there, big as day, all gums, no teeth.
I've seen
just sitting there smiling.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you want to comment on this interview, of course you can go to YouTube under Nelson Moody Sr. That's SR, International Fathers. You can also go on Facebook and talk directly to Mr. Tyler at
Tyrelle Tyler, Why Hold Back, Facebook.
That's it. And comment. Again, this has been International Fathers. I'm your host and your creator, Nelson Moody Sr. Remember, children, call those fathers. And fathers, call those children. And children, hug those fathers. And fathers, hug those children.
Tight.
Until next time.